Our story begins in the heart of a dark period in human history, Nazi Germany. In the early 20th century, a shadow fell across Europe, a shadow cast by the destructive force of Nazism. It was a time of intense fear and uncertainty, where every corner whispered promises of oppression and persecution. The ideals of freedom and justice seemed to be fading, consumed by a ruthless regime that had no room for dissent or opposition. Yet in this chaotic and terrifying landscape, there emerged individuals who dared to challenge the status quo, who dared to stand for what they believed in, even when it meant risking everything. One such individual was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a man of faith, a man of courage, and a man of unwavering resistance. Bonhoeffer was not just any ordinary man. He was a theologian, a pastor, and an ardent opponent of the Nazi regime. His life was a testament to the power of conviction and the strength of the human spirit. Bonhoeffer's story is not just about resistance, but also about faith. His faith was not confined to the walls of a church or the pages of a holy book. It was a living, breathing testament to his belief in justice, equality, and the sanctity of all human life. His life and his legacy are deeply intertwined with the tumultuous history of Nazi Germany. Yet his story transcends the constraints of time and place. It is a story that resonates with us today, reminding us of the power of conviction and the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was not just a figure of the past. His spirit lives on in his writings, in his teachings, and in the countless lives he touched. His life serves as a beacon of hope, a testament to the indomitable human spirit, and a reminder of the enduring power of faith and resistance. Amidst this darkness, a beacon of resistance and faith emerged: Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Born in Breslau, Germany, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was destined for an extraordinary path. His upbringing was steeped in music, culture, and intellectual pursuit. The Bonhoeffers were a close-knit family, known for their robust conversations about religion, politics, and the arts. Young Dietrich, the sixth of 8 children, was no exception. He was deeply influenced by his father, a prominent psychiatrist, and his mother, a woman of strong faith. This blend of intellectual rigor and spiritual depth would later shape his theological perspective. At the tender age of 14, Dietrich declared his intention to become a theologian. His family, while supportive, was taken aback. Theology was not seen as a field for the brightest minds. Yet, Dietrich was undeterred. He was drawn to the mysteries of faith, the profound questions of life and death, good and evil. In 1923, he began his theological studies at the University of Tübingen and later at the University of Berlin. There he was exposed to a range of philosophical and theological perspectives. He studied under renowned theologians like Adolph von Harnack and Karl Hohl, absorbing their teachings while also critiquing them. He was particularly interested in the Sermon on the Mount, seeing it as a radical call to discipleship. Yet, his theological journey was not confined to the lecture halls. He spent a year as a vicar in Barcelona, where he saw the vast economic disparities and the power of the gospel to bring hope. Back in Germany, he also engaged in the nascent ecumenical movement, forging connections with fellow Christians across the globe. Throughout this period, Bonhoeffer's beliefs and values were taking shape. He was drawn to the idea of religionless Christianity, a faith that goes beyond religious rituals to engage with the world in its suffering and joy. He emphasized the cost of discipleship, the call to follow Christ even when it means suffering and sacrifice. Bonhoeffer's early life was not just about theological abstraction. He was deeply concerned about the social and political issues of his time. As Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power, Bonhoeffer was among the few who recognized the looming danger. He was alarmed by the church's complacency and its failure to stand against the growing tide of anti-Semitism and totalitarianism. His theological insights and his early experiences converged, leading him to a path of resistance. He understood that faith was not just about personal salvation, but about standing up for justice and truth in the face of evil. It was about living out the radical love of Christ, even in the most challenging circumstances. His early experiences laid the groundwork for his courageous stand against Nazi ideology. As Hitler rose to power, Dietrich Bonhoeffer found himself at odds with the regime. This was not a passive disagreement, but a profound ideological clash. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian by profession, was a man of deep conviction. He believed in the inherent dignity and worth of every human being, a belief he saw starkly violated by the Nazi ideology. Bonhoeffer's opposition to the Nazi regime wasn't merely intellectual. He was not content to sit in his study, penning treatises and letters of protest. No, Bonhoeffer was a man of action, a man who believed that faith demanded more than words. It demanded deeds, and so he took a stand that would define his life and his legacy. He was deeply troubled by the Church's capitulation to Nazi authority, by its willingness to compromise its principles for the sake of political expediency. Bonhoeffer believed in a church that stood as a beacon of truth and justice, a church that was willing to speak truth to power, no matter the cost. So he became involved with the Confessing Church, a movement that sought to resist the Nazification of German Protestant churches. The Confessing Church was a beacon of dissent in an increasingly conformist society. It was a thorn in the side of the Nazi regime, a reminder that there were still those who refused to bow to the tide of hate and fear. Bonhoeffer was at the forefront of this movement, using his theological training and his passion for justice to articulate a vision of the Christian faith that stood in stark contrast to the distortion peddled by the Nazis. But Bonhoeffer's resistance wasn't confined to the walls of the church. He understood that the struggle against the Nazi regime was a struggle for the very soul of Germany, a battle that demanded the full engagement of every citizen who still believed in the values of justice, truth, and human dignity. So, he took his battle to the public sphere, challenging the Nazi ideology at every turn, speaking out against its abuses, and advocating for those who were its victims. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was not a hero in the traditional sense. He did not wield a sword or lead an army. His weapons were his words, his ideas, and his unshakable faith. But in a world where lies were peddled as truth, where hatred was disguised as patriotism, and where fear was used to manipulate and control, these weapons were more powerful than any sword. Bonhoeffer wasn't just a theologian, he was a man of action. His life is a testament to the power of faith, not just as a private belief, but as a public commitment to justice, to truth, and to the dignity of all human beings. It is a reminder that sometimes the most profound acts of resistance are those that are rooted in the deepest convictions of our hearts. In a time of widespread fear and silence, Bonhoeffer took a stand. He saw the injustice that was being inflicted upon the Jewish people under the Nazi regime, and knew that silence was not an option. This theologian, who had dedicated his life to the teachings of Christ, found himself in the midst of one of the most brutal examples of persecution in modern history. Bonhoeffer's opposition to the persecution of Jews was rooted in his profound understanding of the Bible's teachings on love, justice, and the inherent dignity of all human beings. He was deeply troubled by the hate-filled rhetoric and violent actions of the Nazis towards the Jews. He saw the stripping away of their rights, their dignity, and their very humanity, and he was appalled. His response was not one of passive disapproval. Bonhoeffer was not content to merely express his discontent in private conversations or sermons. He took his opposition public, voicing his concerns openly despite the risks. He used his influence and his platform to draw attention to the atrocities being committed and to call for action, but his actions went beyond mere words. Bonhoeffer became actively involved in efforts to assist those affected by the Nazi policies. He leveraged his connections, his resources, and his own personal safety in a bid to help those who were being persecuted. He was involved in underground networks that were working to assist Jewish individuals, providing them with support, aid, and opportunities for escape. These efforts were not without significant risk. Bonhoeffer knew the dangers involved in standing against the Nazis. He knew the potential consequences for his actions, yet he chose to act regardless. For him, the risk was worth it if it meant standing up for what was right, standing up for those who could not stand up for themselves. Bonhoeffer's actions during this time are a testament to his deep faith and his commitment to justice. They showcase a man who was willing to put his beliefs into action, even when those actions put him at great personal risk. They paint a picture of a man who saw the suffering of others and felt compelled to act, who saw injustice and felt compelled to fight. His opposition to the persecution of Jews, his efforts to assist those in need, and his willingness to risk his own safety in the process, all speak to a deep and abiding faith. A faith that was not just about personal salvation, but about love, justice, and the inherent worth of all human beings. A faith that compelled him to act, to stand up, to resist. For Bonhoeffer, his faith was not simply a belief, but a call to action. And in the face of widespread fear and persecution, he answered that call with courage, conviction, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Despite the dangers, Bonhoeffer made the fateful decision to return to Germany. His homeland was now a place of fear and oppression, but for Dietrich Bonhoeffer, it was also a place that needed voices of resistance more than ever. And so, he stepped back onto the front lines, ready to face whatever came his way. Bonhoeffer was no stranger to the horrors of the Nazi regime. He had seen firsthand the devastation it could cause, but he also knew that turning a blind eye to such atrocities was not an option. His faith, his commitment to justice, and his belief in the inherent dignity of all human beings compelled him to act. Upon his return to Germany, Bonhoeffer threw himself into the resistance movement with renewed vigor. He was not content to simply speak out against Hitler's regime. He wanted to actively work towards its downfall. His activities were varied and extensive, reflecting a man of action as much as a man of thought. Bonhoeffer was deeply involved in the German resistance, working alongside those who shared his commitment to justice and his disdain for the Nazi regime. He became a crucial player in various resistance groups, contributing his theological insights, his strategic acumen, and his unyielding spirit. He used his position within the church to spread anti-Nazi sentiments, to inspire others to stand for what was right, and to provide aid to those in need. He participated in the drafting of the Bethel Confession, a document that openly rejected the Nazis' Aryan paragraph, a policy that excluded non-Aryans from civil service, including the church. But perhaps his most daring act of resistance was his involvement in Operation 7. This operation was a plan devised by the resistance to help 7 Jews escape to Switzerland. Bonhoeffer used his contacts and influence to secure the necessary travel documents, demonstrating his willingness to risk his personal safety for the sake of others. Bonhoeffer's commitment to resistance was not without cost. He faced constant scrutiny, threats, and the ever-looming possibility of arrest. Yet he never wavered in his convictions. He was a man guided by his faith, his sense of justice, and his unwavering belief in the worth of every individual. Through his actions, Bonhoeffer sent a clear message to the world. Complacency in the face of evil was not an option. He challenged the status quo, he defied a tyrannical regime, and he stood for those who could not stand for themselves. Bonhoeffer was not one to stand by in the face of injustice. His return to Germany and his involvement in the resistance serve as a testament to his courage, his resilience, and his unwavering commitment to doing what is right, no matter the cost. His story remains a powerful reminder of the impact one person can have when they choose to stand up against oppression. Even behind bars, Bonhoeffer's spirit remained unbroken. In April of 1943, Dietrich Bonhoeffer found himself in a place he'd never expected to be, a cell in Tegel military prison. Arrested by the Gestapo, the secret police of Nazi Germany, Bonhoeffer was charged with subversion of the Nazi regime. But the walls of his prison cell could not contain his spirit or his voice. Bonhoeffer's imprisonment marked a change in his life, but it didn't mark the end of his work. His prison cell became his pulpit, his letters, his sermons. Despite being physically confined, his thoughts, his faith, and his resistance were as free as ever. The charges against Bonhoeffer stemmed from his involvement with the Abwehr, a German military intelligence organization. He was part of a covert group plotting to overthrow Hitler, a dangerous undertaking that, if discovered, guaranteed severe punishment. But to Bonhoeffer, the risk was worth it. His faith demanded action against the injustices he saw unfolding around him. During his imprisonment, Bonhoeffer wrote letters and essays that were smuggled out by sympathetic guards and friends. These writings offer profound insights into his theological reflections during this tumultuous period. He continued to grapple with his understanding of Christianity's role in a world torn apart by war and hatred. In his letters from prison, Bonhoeffer explores the concept of religionless Christianity. He questioned the role of religion in a world that seemed to be moving away from it. He believed that faith should be deeply integrated into all aspects of life, not just reserved for Sundays or times of prayer. Bonhoeffer's prison writings also delved deeply into the concept of suffering. He believed that suffering was an integral part of Christian life. This belief was not born out of a desire for martyrdom, but rather from an understanding that standing up for one's beliefs often comes with a cost. He wrote, "Suffering, then, is the badge of true discipleship." Even in the face of death, Bonhoeffer clung to his faith. He did not view his impending execution as an end, but rather as a new beginning. In one of his letters he wrote, "Death is the supreme festival on the road to freedom." Bonhoeffer's letters served as a source of comfort and inspiration to those who received them. His words carried a message of hope and resilience that transcended the walls of his cell. They were a testament to his unyielding faith and his refusal to be silenced. Despite his circumstances, Bonhoeffer remained hopeful about the future. He believed that a better world was possible, a world where justice and peace would prevail. His writings reflect his unwavering commitment to this vision and his determination to play his part in bringing it about, even from within the confines of a prison cell. As he sat in his cell, Bonhoeffer had no way of knowing what impact his words would have. He wrote not for fame or recognition, but out of a deep sense of duty and a fervent desire to bear witness to the truth. His letters from prison have since been published and read by millions, serving as a powerful testament to his indomitable spirit and unshakable faith. 2 years after his arrest in April of 1945, Bonhoeffer was executed at Flossenburg concentration camp, just days before its liberation. His life was cut short, but his legacy lived on. His words, written from a prison cell, continue to resonate with people around the world, inspiring them to stand up for justice and truth. Imprisoned, yet free, Bonhoeffer continued to inspire. His prison reflections, a testament to his courage and faith, serve as a beacon of hope, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can remain unbroken. Bonhoeffer's life may have been cut short, but his impact was far-reaching. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's legacy is one of remarkable courage and unwavering faith. His life, though marked by struggle and adversity, continues to inspire and influence countless individuals, religious communities, and societies around the world. A theologian of great depth, Bonhoeffer's writings, teachings, and personal example have left an indelible mark on the field of Christian theology and beyond. He was a man who truly practiced what he preached, living out his convictions even in the face of unimaginable pressure. He believed in the power of the gospel to confront and challenge societal evils, and he refused to remain silent in the face of the Nazi regime's atrocities. This commitment to justice and truth has made Bonhoeffer an enduring symbol of resistance and faith. His theological contributions continue to shape Christian thought and practice. His concept of cheap grace as grace without discipleship, grace without the cross, remains a profound challenge to the complacency and comfort which can sometimes pervade Christian communities. His emphasis on the cost of discipleship, the idea that true faith demands sacrifice and active opposition to evil, is as relevant today as it was in the turbulent times in which he lived. Bonhoeffer's theology was deeply rooted in the reality of human suffering and struggle. In his prison letters, he wrestled with the question of God's presence in a world of pain and injustice. He proposed the idea of a God who suffers, a God who is with us in our suffering, not distant or detached. This concept has greatly influenced contemporary theological discussions on the problem of pain and the nature of God. Beyond the confines of academia, Bonhoeffer's resistance to the Nazi regime has provided a powerful example of ethical courage and moral integrity. His life challenges us to consider what it means to stand up against systemic evil, to resist the temptation of silence and complicity. His story serves as a stark reminder that faith is not a passive acceptance of doctrine, but an active engagement with the world in pursuit of justice and peace. His writings, particularly his letters from prison, continue to be a source of inspiration and encouragement for those facing persecution or hardship. His words offer comfort and hope, reminding us of the enduring presence of God in the midst of trials. His faith, as expressed through his writings, is a testament to the power of hope and the resilience of the human spirit. Bonhoeffer's legacy is not confined to the past. His life and teachings continue to resonate in our present context, challenging us to confront injustice, to speak truth to power, and to live out our faith with courage and conviction. His example inspires a new generation of theologians, activists, and believers to engage critically with their faith and their world. His influence can be felt in the ongoing struggles for human rights, religious freedom, and social justice around the globe. His writings are being translated into numerous languages, making his thoughts accessible to a diverse range of cultures and communities. His life story has been told in books, films, and plays, touching hearts and minds across the globe. In a world often marked by division and despair, Bonhoeffer's legacy offers a beacon of hope and a call to action. His life challenges us to live out our deepest beliefs, to stand up for justice and truth, and to embrace the cost of discipleship. His story is a reminder that faith is not a retreat from the world, but a commitment to engage with it, to confront its evils, and to work for its transformation. Indeed, Bonhoeffer's legacy of resistance and faith continues to resonate across the globe. His life is a testament to the power of faith to confront evil, to challenge injustice, and to inspire hope. His story is a powerful reminder of the cost of discipleship and the enduring impact of a life lived in pursuit of truth and justice. Bonhoeffer's legacy of resistance and faith continues to resonate across the globe. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's life serves as a testament to the power of faith and resistance. A theologian, an activist, and a martyr, Bonhoeffer's story is one that continues to resonate and inspire even in the 21st century. Born into an affluent family in Germany, Bonhoeffer's early life was marked by a deep intellectual curiosity and a profound commitment to his Christian faith. His theological studies led him to challenge the prevailing religious thought of his time, and his beliefs were further galvanized by his experiences in the ecumenical movement. His commitment to justice and truth was unwavering, setting the stage for his later opposition to the Nazi regime. As Hitler rose to power, Bonhoeffer was among the few who recognized the true nature of this regime and its devastating implications. His opposition to the Nazis was rooted in his deep-seated belief in the sanctity of all human life, a belief that was put to the test as he witnessed the horrific persecution of Jews. Bonhoeffer did not stand by idly. He actively sought to support and protect those affected by Nazi policies, even participating in underground networks to assist Jewish individuals. Despite the danger, Bonhoeffer chose to return to Germany, fully aware of the risks he faced. His courage was undeterred. He joined various resistance movements against Hitler and even participated in efforts to overthrow the Nazi regime. His resistance was not merely political, but profoundly spiritual, reflecting his belief in the transformative power of faith. His courage came at a cost. Bonhoeffer was arrested by the Gestapo and spent the final years of his life in prison. But even behind bars, his spirit remained unbroken. He continued to write and engage in theological reflections, producing works such as The Cost of Discipleship that continue to shape Christian thought to this day. Bonhoeffer's legacy is one of courage, faith, and unwavering commitment to justice. His influence on theology and ethics is profound, and his life serves as a powerful example of the potential for resistance in the face of oppression. Even in the darkest of times, Bonhoeffer's writings and actions remind us of the power of faith and the possibility of resistance. In remembering Bonhoeffer, we are reminded of the importance of standing firm in our convictions, of the transformative power of faith, and of the potential for resistance, even in the face of overwhelming oppression. His story is a testament to the power of courage and faith, and serves as an enduring reminder of the importance of standing up for what we believe in. Bonhoeffer's message of faith and resistance is as relevant today as it was during his lifetime. In a world that is often marked by injustice and oppression, his life serves as a powerful reminder of the potential for resistance and the transformative power of faith. His legacy continues to inspire, challenging us to stand firm in our convictions and to resist oppression wherever we find it. In the face of oppression, Bonhoeffer's message of faith and resistance remains as relevant today as it was during his lifetime.